Do you see this ring? 'Tis Rome work, made to match by Castellani's imitative craft, Etrurian circlets, found some happy morn after a dropping April, found alive, spark-like, mid unearthed slopeside fig tree roots that roof old tombs at Chiusi. Soft, you see, yet crisp as jewel cutting. There's one trick, craftsmen instruct me, one approved device, and but one fits such slivers of pure gold as this was. Such mere oozings from the mine, virgin as oval tawny pendant tear at beehive edge, when ripened combs o'erflow, to bear the file's tooth and the hammer's tap. Since hammer needs must widen out the round, and file emboss it fine with lily flowers, ere the stuff grow a ring thing right to wear. That trick is, the artificer melts up wax with honey, so to speak. He mingles gold with gold's alloy, and, duly tempering both, effects a manageable mass, then works. But his work ended, once the thing a ring, oh, there's repristination. Just a spurt of the proper fiery acid o'er its face, and forth the alloy unfastened flies in fume. While, self-sufficient now, the shape remains. The rondure brave, the lilied loveliness, gold as it was, is, shall be evermore. Prime nature, with an added artistry. No carat lost, and you have gained a ring. What of it? 'Tis a figure, a symbol, say, a thing's sign. Now, for the thing signified. Do you see this square old yellow book I toss in the air and catch again and twirl about by the crumpled vellum covers? Pure crude fact, secreted from man's life when hearts beat hard and brains high-blooded ticked 2 centuries since. Examine it yourselves. I found this book, gave a lira for it, 8 pence English just. Marked the predestination when a hand, always above my shoulder, pushed me once, one day still fierce, mid many a day struck calm, across the square in Florence crammed with booths, buzzing in blaze, noontide in market time, toward Baccio's marble. Aye, the basement ledge of the pedestal where sits and menaces John of the black bands with the upright spear, twixt palace and church. Ricciardi, where they lived, his race, in San Lorenzo where they lie. This book, precisely on that palace step which, meant for lounging knaves of the Medici, now serves revenders to display their ware. Mongst odds and ends of ravage, picture frames white through the worn gilt, mirror sconces chipped, bronze angel heads once knobs attached to chests, handled when ancient dames chose forth brocade. Modern chalk drawings, studies from the nude. Samples of stone, jet, breccia, porphyry, polished and rough. Sundry amazing busts in baked earth, broken, Providence be praised. A wreck of tapestry, proudly purposed web when reds and blues were indeed red and blue. Now offered as a mat to save bare feet, since carpets constitute a cruel cost, treading the chill scagliola bedward. Then A pile of brown-etched prints, 2 kratzy each, stopped by a conch atop from fluttering forth, sewing the square with works of one and the same master, the imaginative Sienese, great in the scenic backgrounds, name and fame none of you know, nor does he fare the worse. From these. Oh, with a Leonard going cheap if it should prove as promised that Joconde were of a copy contents the Louvre, these I picked this book from. 5 compeers in flank stood left and right of it, as tempting more. A dog's-eared Spicilegium, the fond tale of the frail one of the flower by young Dumas, vulgarized Horace for the use of schools, the life, death, miracles of Saint Somebody else, his miracles, death, and life. With this, one glance at the lettered back of which, and stall, cried I. A lira made it mine. Here it is. This I toss and take again. Small quarto size, part print, part manuscript. A book in shape, but really pure crude fact, secreted from man's life when hearts beat hard and brains high-blooded, ticked 2 centuries since. Give it me back. The thing's restorative in the touch and sight. That memorable day, June was the month, Lorenzo named the square. I leaned a little and overlooked my prize by the low railing round the fountain source close to the statue where a step descends, while clinked the cans of copper as stooped and rose thick-ankled girls who brimmed them and made place for market-men glad to pitch the basket down, dip a broad melon leaf that holds the wet, and whisk their faded fresh. And on I read presently, though my path grew perilous, between the outspread straw work, piles of plates soon to be flapping, each or 2 black eyes in swath of Tuscan hair on festus fine. Through fire irons, tribes of tongs, shovels and sheaves, skeleton bedsteads, wardrobe drawers agape, rows of tall slim brass lamps with dangling gear, and worse, cast clothes sweetening in the sun, none of them took my eye from off my prize. Still read I on, from written title page to written index, on, through street and street, at the Strozzi, at the pillar, at the bridge, till, by the time I stood at home again in Casa Guidi by Felice Church, under the doorway, where the black begins with the first stone slab of the staircase cold, I had mastered the contents, knew the whole truth gathered together, bound up in this book, print 3/5, written supplement the rest. Romana homicidiorum. Nay, better translate. A Roman murder case. Position of the entire criminal cause of Guido Franceschini, nobleman, with certain 4 the cutthroats in his pay, tried all 5 and found guilty and put to death by heading or hanging as befitted ranks at Rome on February 22 since our salvation 1698, wherein it is disputed if and when husbands may kill adulterous wives, yet scape the customary forfeit. Word for word, so ran the title page. Murder, or else legitimate punishment of the other crime, accounted murder by mistake. Just that, and no more, in a Latin cramp enough when the law had her eloquence to launch, but interfilleted with Italian streaks when testimony stooped to mother tongue. That was this old square yellow book about. Now, as the ingot, ere the ring was forged, lay gold, beseech you hold that figure fast, so in this book lay absolutely truth, fanciless fact, the documents indeed, primary lawyer pleadings for, against the aforesaid five. Real summed up circumstance adduced in proof of these on either side, put forth and printed, as the practice was at Rome in the apostolic chambers type, and so submitted to the eye of the court, presided over by his reverence, Rome's governor and criminal judge. The trial itself, to all intents, being then as now here in the book, and nowise out of it, seeing there properly was no judgment bar, no bringing of accuser and accused, and whoso judged both parties face to face before some court as we conceive of courts. There was a hall of justice, that came last, for justice had a chamber by the hall where she took evidence first, summed up the same, then sent accuser and accused alike in person of the advocate of each to weigh its worth, thereby array the battle. 'Twas the so-styled Fisk began, pleaded, and since he only spoke in print, the printed voice of him lives now as then. The public prosecutor, murders proved with five, what we call qualities of bad, worst, and yet worse still, and still worse yet. Crest over crest, crowning the cockatrice, that beggar hell's regalia to enrich Count Guido Franceschini, punish him. Thus was the paper put before the court in the next stage. No noisy work at all, to study at ease. In due time, like reply came from the so-styled patron of the poor, official mouthpiece of the five accused, too poor to fee a better, Guido's luck or else his fellows, which I hardly know. An outbreak as of wonder at the world, a fury fit of outraged innocence, a passion of betrayed simplicity. Punish Count Guido? For what crime? What hint of the color of a crime? Inform us first. Reward him, rather. Recognize, we say, in the deed done, a righteous judgment dealt. All conscience and all courage, there's our count, charactered in a word. And what's more strange, he had companionship and privilege, found four courageous, conscientious friends. Absolve, applaud all five as props of law, sustainers of society. Perchance a trifle over hasty with the hand to hold her tottering ark had tumbled else, but that's a splendid fault, whereat we wink, wishing your cold correctness sparkled so. Thus paper second followed paper first. Thus did the two join issue. Nay, the four, each pleader having an adjunct. True, he killed, so to speak, in a certain sort, his wife, but laudably, since thus it happed, quoth one, whereat more witness, and the case postponed. Thus it happed not, since thus he did the deed, and proved himself thereby portentousest of cutthroats, and a prodigy of crime, as the woman that he slaughtered was a saint, martyr, and miracle, quoth the other to match. Again, more witness, and the case postponed. A miracle? I of lust and impudence. Hear my new reasons, interposed the first, coupled with more of mine, pursued his peer. Beside, the precedents, the authorities. From both at once a cry with an echo, that was a firebrand at each fox's tail unleashed in a cornfield. Soon spread flare enough as hurtled thither and there heaped themselves from earth's four corners, all authority and precedent for putting wives to death, or letting wives live, sinful as they seem. How legislated now in this respect Solon and his Athenians? Quote the code of Romulus in Rome, Justinian speak, nor modern Baldo, Bartolo be dumb. The Roman voice was potent, plentiful. Cornelia de Saccharis hurried to help Pompeia de Parricides. Julia de something or other jostled Lex this and that. King Solomon confirmed Apostle Paul. That nice decision of Dolabella, eh? That pregnant instance of Theodoric, oh, down to that choice example Alien gives. An instance I find much insisted on of the elephant, who, brute beast though he were, yet understood and punished on the spot his master's naughty spouts and faithless friend. A true tale which has edified each child. Much more shall flourish favored by our court. Pages of proof this way and that way proof, and always, once again, the case postponed. Thus wrangled, brangled, jangled they a month. Only on paper, pleadings all in print. Nor ever was, except in the brains of men, more noise by word of mouth than you hear now. Till the court cut all short with, judged your cause, receive our sentence. Praise God, we pronounce Count Guido devilish and damnable. His wife Pompilia, in thought, word, and deed, was perfect pure. He murdered her for that. As for the four who helped the one, all five, why, let employer and hirelings share alike in guilt and guilt's reward, the death their due. So, was the trial at end, do you suppose? Guilty you find him, death you doom him to. I were not Guido, more than needs, a priest. Priest, and to spare. This was a shot reserved. I learn this from epistles which begin here where the print ends. See the pen and ink of the advocate, the ready at the pinch. My client boasts the clerkly privilege, has taken minor orders many enough, shows still sufficient chrism upon his pate to neutralize a blood stain. Presbyter, praemitonsuri, subdiaconus, sacerdos, so he slips from underneath your power, the temporal, slides inside the robe of Mother Church. To her we make appeal, by the Pope, the Church's head. A parlous plea, put in with noticeable effect, it seems. Since straight, resumes the zealous orator, making a friend acquainted with the facts, once the word clericality let fall, procedure stopped, and freer breath was drawn by all considerate and responsible Rome. Quality took the decent part, of course, held by the husband, who was noble too, or, for the matter of that, a churl would side with too refined susceptibility, an honor which, tender in the extreme, stung to the quick, must roughly right itself at all risks, not sit still and whine for law as a Jew would if you squeezed him to the wall. brisk trotting through the ghetto. Nay, it seems even the emperor's envoy had his say to say on the subject. Might not see unmoved civility menaced throughout Christendom by too harsh measure dealt her champion here. Lastly, what made all safe, the Pope was kind. From his youth up, reluctant to take life. If mercy might be just and yet show grace, much more unlikely than in extreme age to take a life the general sense bade spare. 'Twas plain that Guido would go scatheless yet. But human promise, oh, how short of shine, how topple down the pillars of hope we rear, how history proves. Nay, read Herodotus. Suddenly starting from a nap, as it were, a dog sleep with one shut, one open orb, cried the Pope's great self, innocent by name and nature too, and 86 years old, Antonio Pignatelli of Naples, Pope who had trod many lands, known many deeds, probed many hearts, beginning with his own, and now was far in readiness for God. 'Twas he who first bade leave those souls in peace, those Jansenists, re-nicknamed Molinists, 'gainst whom the cry went like a frowsy tune tickling men's ears, the sect for a quarter of an hour in the teeth of the world, which Clownwike loves to chew, be it but a straw twixt work and whistling while, taste some vituperation, bite away, whether at marjoram sprig or garlic clove, aught it may sport with, spoil, and spit forth. Leave them alone, bade he, those Molinists, who may have other light than we perceive. Or why is it the whole world hates them thus? Also, he peeled off that last scandal rag of nepotism, and so observed the poor that men would merrily say, halt, deaf and blind, who feed on fat things, leave the master's self to gather up the fragments of his feast. These be the nephews of Pope Innocent. His own meal costs but 5 carlines a day, poor priest's allowance, for he claims no more. He cried of a sudden, this great, good old Pope, when they appealed in last resort to him. I have mastered the whole matter, I nothing doubt. Though Guido stood forth priest from head to heel, instead of, as alleged, a piece of one. And further, were he, from the tonsured scalp to the sandaled soul of him, my son and Christ's, instead of touching us by fingertip as you assert, and pressing up so close, only to set a blood smutch on our robe, I and Christ would renounce all right in him. Am I not Pope, and presently to die, and busied how to render my account? And shall I wait a day ere I decide on doing or not doing justice here? Cut off his head tomorrow by this time. Hang up his 4 mates, 2 on either hand, and end one business more. So said, so done. Rather, so writ. For the old Pope bade this, I find, with his particular chirograph, his own no such infirm hand, Friday night, And next day, February 22, since our salvation, 1698, not at the proper head and hanging place on Footbridge, close by Castellangelo, where custom somewhat staled the spectacle, 'twas not so well in the way of Rome beside, the noble Rome, the Rome of Guido's rank, but at the city's newer, gayer end, the cavalcading promenading place beside the gate and opposite the church, under the Pincian gardens green with spring, 'neath the obelisk twixt the fountains in the square, did Guido and his fellows find their fate. All Rome for witness, and, my writer adds, remonstrant in its universal grief, since Guido had the suffrage of all Rome. This is the bookful. Thus far take the truth, the untempered gold, the fact untampered with, the mere ring metal, ere the ring be made. And what has hitherto come of it? Who preserves the memory of this Guido and his wife Pompilia, more than Adamolo's name, the etcher of those prints, 2 kreutzig each, saved by a stone from snowing broad the square with scenic backgrounds? Was this truth of force, able to take its own part as truth should, sufficient, self-sustaining? Why, if so, yonder's a fire, into it goes my book. As who shall say me nay, and what the loss? You know the tale already. I may ask, rather than think to tell you, more thereof. Ask you not merely who were he and she, husband and wife, what manner of mankind, but how you holds concerning this and that other yet unnamed actor in the piece, the young, frank, handsome, courtly canon, now the priest, declared the lover of the wife, who, no question, did elope with her, for certain bring the tragedy about, Giuseppe Caponsacchi. His strange course in the matter, was it right or wrong, or both? Then the old couple, slaughtered with the wife by the husband as accomplices in crime, those Comparini, Pietro and his spouse. What say you to the right or wrong of that? When, at a known name whispered through the door of a lone villa on a Christmas night, it opened that the joyous hearts inside might welcome as it were an angel guest come in Christ's name to knock and enter, sup and satisfy the loving ones he saved, and so did welcome devils and their death. I have been silent on that circumstance, although the couple passed for close of kin to husband and wife, were by some accounts Pompilia's very parents. You know best. Also, that infant the great joy was for, that Gaetano, the wife's 2 weeks' babe, the husband's firstborn child, his son and heir, whose birth and being turned his night to day. Why must the father kill the mother thus? Because she bore his son and saved himself. Well, British public, ye who like me not, God love you, and will have your proper laugh at the dark question. Laugh it. I laugh first. Truth must prevail, the proverb vows, and truth? Here is it all in the book at last, as first there it was all in the hearts and heads of Rome, gentle and simple, never to fall nor fade nor be forgotten. Yet a little while, the passage of a century or so, decades thrice five, and here's time paid his tax. Oblivion gone home with her harvesting, and all left smooth again as scythe could shave. Far from beginning with you London folk, I took my book to Rome first, tried truth's power, unlikely people. Have you met such names? Is a tradition extant of such facts? Your law courts stand, your records frown a row. What if I Roman rubbish? Why, you'll waste your pains and end as wise as you began, everyone snickered. Names and facts thus old are newer much than Europe news we find down in today's diario. Records, quotha? Why, the French burned them. What else do the French, that rap and rending nation? And it tells against the church, no doubt. Another gird at the temporality, your trial, of course. Quite otherwise this time, submitted I, clean for the church and dead against the world. The flesh and the devil does it tell for once. The rarer and the happier. All the same, content you with your treasure of a book, and waive what's wanting. Take a friend's advice. It's not the custom of the country. Mend your ways indeed, and we may stretch a point. But go get you manned by Manning, and new manned by Newman, and mayhap wise manned to boot by Wiseman, and we'll see, or else we won't. Thanks meantime for the story, long and strong. A pretty piece of narrative enough, which scarce ought so to drop out, one would think, from the most curious annals of our kind. Do you tell the story now, in offhand style, straight from the book, or simply here and there, the while you vault it through the loose and large, hang to a hint? Or is there book at all? And don't you deal in poetry, make believe, and the white lies, it sounds like? Yes and no. From the book? Yes. Thence bit by bit I dug the lingot truth, that memorable day, essayed and knew my piecemeal gain was gold. Yes. But from something else surpassing that, something of mine, which, mixed up with the mass, made it bear hammer and be firm to file. Fancy with fact is just one fact the more. To wit, that fancy has informed, transpierced, threaded, and so thrown fast the facts else free. As right through ring and ring runs the jereed and binds the loose, one bar without a break. I fused my live soul in that inert stuff before attempting smithcraft on the night after the day when, truth thus grasped and gained, the book was shut and done with and laid by on the cream-colored massive agate, broad neath the twin cherubs in the tarnished frame of the mirror, tall thence to the ceiling top. And from the reading and that slab I leant my elbow on, the while I read and read. I turned to free myself and find the world, and stepped out on the narrow terrace, built over the street and opposite the church, and paced its lozenged brickwork sprinkled cool. Because Felice church side stretched, aglow through each square window fringed for festival, whence came the clear voice of the cloistered ones chanting a chant made for midsummer nights. I know not what particular praise of God. It always came and went with June. Beneath in the street, quick shown by openings of the sky, when flame fell silently from cloud to cloud. Richer than that gold snow, Jove rained on roads. The townsmen walked by twos and threes and talked, drinking the blackness in default of air. A busy human sense beneath my feet, while in and out the terrace plants, in round one branch of tall datura, waxed and waned, the lamp fly lured there, wanting the white flower.